All right, we're good. Cheers, everybody. No coffee today. We're back in our comfort zone, drinking some brews, and I got some meat on the smoker. Today is tri-tip. Made a grocery store yesterday. They had a nice looking little tri-tip, not too big, pretty small, perfect for me and my family to have for dinner, and it doesn't take very long to cook. And it's actually timed out where I got to pull it off and then crank it up to sear it here in just 1 second. So you guys will get to see it actually, all right? Today, we're drinking Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing up in Northern California. This is good stuff, guys. This IPA won IPA of the year or whatever from whatever magazine is in charge of choosing that, like 8 years in a row, something like that. And finally, Bell's Two Hearted knocked it off. Bell's Two Hearted from Chicago-based area knocked it off. Today I am wearing a Drink Wisconsinly t-shirt because Wisconsin opened their bars up and apparently they were packed last night. So good luck with that, guys. Hope cheese helps with coronavirus. And I'm wearing my Sam Adams hat because our guest today I knew was associated somehow with the New Englandish area. He's going to be coming us from Providence, Rhode Island. We're going to enjoy talking to him. We're going to bring him in just 1 second after I drink some beer and check my meat. All right. Cheers, everybody. And my meat's at 1:30. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to bring Steven. I'm going to start talking to him. I'm going to pull the tri-tip off. I'm going to let it sit and rest for a few minutes while I crank the smoker up to 400 degrees. So it's probably going to get smoky back there. Then I'm going to sear it on some sear plates I put into the smoker. If you were watching yesterday, you saw me have some burgers on those sear plates. So that's what's happening, everybody. Please welcome Steve Blair. What's up? How's it going, buddy? Can you hear us?
Dave, doing well. How are you? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We did it. Yeah, man. We got you. You sound great. You look great. It looks like you're hanging out in a murder basement, but hey, what do I know?
So the story is, and I was going to try and connect to the computer. I got a 1-year-old daughter, and she went to bed about an hour ago. So I was like, I got to move this out to the man shed just to make sure I don't wake her up, because the last thing I need is a cranky 1-year-old.
I feel you, man. Hey, at least your man shed has shelter. Mine's only got a back wall.
Hey, listen, I saw that you were doing that. That looks primo, man. That's a nice spot.
Thank you, dude. How much money do you think I spent on that, Steve?
I think I recall you spent maybe $100.
Hey, you're supposed to just say, Dave, that looks like it would take thousands of dollars to build. And I would say, I did it for under $200.
Nice. Well, that's all right. The shed that I'm in, I spent $6,000 on, and I told my wife I wasn't going to spend that much.
And you probably can't hang out out there during the winter, huh?
No. I'd love to insulate it, run some electrical, but we'll see.
So you're in the Northeast, and today I'm doing tri-tip, which is a very California thing to smoke. Do you guys ever screw around with tri-tip out there?
I've messed with it once or twice. It's definitely something you don't see here on the East Coast very often.
Yeah, I'm from Florida, and it was something I had never even heard of it until I moved out here. And even when I moved out here 6-7 years ago, I started coming out here maybe 10 years ago. It wasn't even that big down in LA. And I went up to the San Luis Obispo Comedy Festival, which is more like Central California on the coast. And it was everywhere. Everybody was like, tri-tip sandwich, world famous, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I never even heard of that. But now it's, made its way around everywhere, and it's popular. So listen, I'm going to go pull it off and start messing with it. And while I do that, why don't you tell the people a little about yourself and what you do in the world of food?
Yeah, definitely. So again, and as you mentioned, and I see you got it written there. I actually worked for a culinary school, or we're primarily known for culinary arts, Johnson & Wales University. Main location is here in Providence, Rhode Island, but we do have 3 additional campuses: one in Charlotte, one in Denver, and one down in Miami. What I do for the university after graduating from there in 2007, I made my way through the world of food, this, that, the other thing, decided I wanted to return to the university. What I do is I primarily travel around the Northeast, anywhere from Jersey up to Maine. You talk Long Island, New York to upstate New York. I go into high schools and I do cooking demonstrations in front of prospective students. So as much as it's like, oh, it's recruiting for Johnson & Wales, the way I like to see it, it's more informing students of options within the world of culinary arts and the world of food itself. So,
well, it's probably too like, do you get like a lot of reactions where people, like kids probably obviously realize that working in a restaurant or working in the food space is an option, but they probably are just exposed to like, oh, you could be a waiter at the local burrito joint, but you go in there and then they realize that there could be a real fulfilling they could be following it as a passion, and the sky's the limit in it. Maybe that's not as necessarily the case these days since Food Network has made it more accessible, but I still think you probably get that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so that's something I tell students all the time, or prospective students, like if you love food and you have a passion for food, you can take that passion in so many different avenues. A quick little backstory about myself. I graduated from high school in 2003. When I told my parents I wanted to get into the world of culinary arts and go to school for culinary arts, God's honest truth, they looked at me and thought I was crazy. Because at that time it was, all right, you're going to work in a restaurant, you're going to work in a hotel, it's nights, it's weekends. But there's so much more to it nowadays that you think the health industry, and it's not just medicine, it's food can be medicine. And so that's kind of the way that the world is evolving. And so that's something we teach our students at Johnson & Wales is how can you utilize food as medicine?
Mm-hmm. Well, so give me an example, man. Just eating healthy in general, you mean? Did it skip? You didn't hear me?
Dave, you there?
Yeah. You got me? I see you. You look great. Did you lose the signal? Am I frozen? Are you looking at the tri-tip? All right, let me know when you're back. I'm just going to start talking. Hey, Bora. What's up, Adrian? Hey, Mitch. How you doing, guys? All right, while we're waiting to get Steve back,
How about now?
let me show you guys. This is my tri-tip that I just pulled off. Boom, there we go. And then once I get the smoker up to about 400 degrees, I'm going to sear it on the sear plates, just a little bit on each side. The tri-tip's already up to 130 degrees, so it's good to go in the middle. But we're going to go ahead and sear the outside to give it some crisp. Steve's having technical difficulties, but it's kind of fun watching him try to figure it out in his murder bunker. I could say anything to him. We should just sit and watch. I don't think he can see us. Is that the problem? You're gonna go back to the computer, Steve. Can tri-tip be tough? How do you cook it to make it tender? I think smoking it in general helps it accomplish that, man. I think tri-tip can definitely be tough if you just like were to grill it or something like that. But smoking it in the smoker at a low temperature, lets it. All right, he's going out, and we're gonna have him come. He's gonna try to come back in. So yeah, I think just smoking it in general, man, for a longer period of time at a lower temperature. I smoked it at 250 degrees and till it got to 130 internal, because I like it like medium rare-ish. And then I'll put it back on those sear plates, like I said, till I get the nice crisp on the outside. So Steve's trying to come back in. Let's see if we bring him back in. You back, Steve?
Yeah, there we go. I'm guessing my my wireless earphones died, but that's all right. You gotta have the gotta have
if it's not
the
one
wireless,
thing, it's another.
right?
All right. Well, what I was asking you is just about when you go and recruit at high school, and then I'll ask a new question. So do you actually cook for them while you're there? And if so, what's your one go-to thing you cook that you know you're going to recruit a lot of kids?
So I do actually recruit, and that's one of the beauties of my job is I get to decide, what do I want to make? What do I go in and what do I want to make? And kind of like, what's going to sell these students? What's going to like hook, line, and sinker, so to say. My go-to, and it's worked a lot. Well, in the past, I don't know if I should give away my secret, but I actually did
Wait, are there other recruiters that are going to hear your secret? And now you're going to.
There are. You don't understand. There are. So I actually do a Mexican street corn salad. So I take a elote, which traditionally in Mexican cuisine is called esquite. So it's like corn off the cob that's been roasted. It's got this mayonnaise and cotija cheese and some spices in it. Oh, dude, spot on.
Nice. I can see how that could work. Now, you were mentioning the Johnson & Wales campuses in different cities around the United States. So since they're located in specific cities, do those particular, well, let me phrase this a different way. You were mentioning the Johnson & Wales locations in different cities. Do those locations specialize in what those cities are known for? Like the one in Miami, is it like known for like Cuban food and café con leche?
So it's not. So we have a structured curriculum that we follow, and every student gets taught that curriculum. But what I do say is we have different chef instructors at each campus, and those chef instructors are going to bring their own flair into the classroom. So we do have some Latina and Latino instructors that will bring that flair at the Miami campus.
All right, that makes sense.
And I like that you brought that up. So going back to my story, when I graduated high school, born and raised in Michigan. So I'm a Midwest guy, right? Spent 18 years in Michigan. I said, you know what? I got to get out of this cold. So I spent my first 2 years at Johnson & Wales down in Miami.
Okay.
How I ended up in Providence? Well, that's to be seen, you know.
So, you know, I grew up in Miami. I'm from Miami. And I would say the most out of shape I've ever been in my life is when I worked at my family's car dealership, and I went from working the sales department to the service department because I had to be at work every day at 7 a.m. and it was impossible not to stop at the little cafecitos, the Cuban windows, where it was basically someone's abuela, their grandma, who worked there.
Yep.
And you would get a tostada, which is Cuban bread covered in butter. And then you would get a café con leche, which is basically coffee that is just entirely full of sugar and cream and milk. And then you dip the butter toast into the sugar and milk and you eat it. And it is so delicious. And I gained so much weight during that period of time.
So I was in Miami 2003, 2004, 2005. And you know, they say, oh, you go off to college and you gain that freshman 15. Well, you go to a school where you're cooking and it's freshman 40, freshman 50. So the fitness centers tend to get a lot of use.
It was the in Miami, it's called the freshman 14.
Yeah. Can
you hear the sizzle?
I can. It's a beautiful sound.
I don't know why I yelled. I'm mic'd. I didn't have to yell from over there.
That's all right.
Daniel recommended take it up to 140. Actually did let it ride a little bit past 130, Daniel. It was at least 140 in the thinner part and probably like 133, 135 in the thicker part. And I tend to like my my crust on the outside to be a little bit crispier, I guess is the way to put it. So I tend to sear it for longer than most people sear it. So I try to pull it on the earlier side than the later side anyways, but very good tip. And I like that you told Mitch to think internal temperature, not time, but just as a reference, Mitch, it was on there for probably about an hour and a half. It doesn't take a long time to get the temp, a small tri-tip like that. So being up in Providence now, do you like to cook a lot of like things from that area, like the snappy lobsters and the chowder and all that stuff? Yeah.
So transplanting, I say, to Rhode Island and the Northeast itself, you get turned on to seafood.
Sure.
You know, Rhode Island's known as the ocean state. So there is so much seafood to be had that if you don't like seafood, well, you're kind of out of luck, I guess. No, you're not out of luck. There's other restaurants and there's other stuff to have, but you gotta love it, you know.
Well, it would just be a shame not to take advantage of it, you know? And I think
Most
when
definitely.
you live somewhere where they do something so well, I mean, how could you not end up liking it? I mean, you're going to have the best version of that particular, you know, it's like living here in LA where I live and not liking Mexican food. I mean, the Mexican food places here are just off the chain.
Right.
But once I tell them all about your corn salsa salad that you make, the cat's going to be out of the bag, buddy. You're going to have to raise your game.
I know. So one of my other demonstrations, my go-to, and I just recently did it. It was a broccoli gnocchi. Now I know this is a meat podcast, so
we don't discriminate.
But so I made a broccoli gnocchi, and instead of using potato for the base, I actually use the broccoli stalk.
All right.
So I take and I boil it and I mash it up, and that takes the place of the potato for my gnocchi. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage students and people in the world, think sustainably. Think, all right, if I'm not going to use that stock, what am I going to do with it? What do most people do with it? They throw it away. So you got to use it. And I will tell you what, it may have been that like cup of cheese that I put in there, but students tended to like it.
Yeah. Dude, I hate wasting food and I love thinking creatively with it. And you're talking on a very practical, a very high brain power level with it. But I think of it on a very day-to-day, like, so I go work at comedy clubs around the world and they give us one free meal, usually a night while we're there. So I'll order like a chicken sandwich with fries. And then if I don't eat the whole, because I don't usually eat like when I'm performing, you know? So if I don't eat it, I take it to go. And then the next day, I'll take the bun off the chicken sandwich and use that to make an egg sandwich. And I'll take the French fries and chop them up and make hash browns. And then I'll take that chicken breast that I didn't eat and I'll heat that up and I'll have that for lunch. And then I'll take the onion and the tomato that was on and chop it up and make it a slaw. Like, you know, I just like deconstruct food, or when I have leftovers, I just see how I can use it. Dude, anything I don't eat for dinner goes into an omelet the next morning. I love putting weird shit in omelets.
Because it works.
Yeah.
It's because it works. You know, and the way you reach most people about wasting food is pull out a $20 bill out of your pocket and throw it in the trash. see how quickly people react to what? Yeah. Now think of that as food. Same thing. I love my money. I'm not throwing it away.
I would saute money and eat it if I could. So you know what I did recently was I found, when the whole quarantine first started, I found some Wagyu ground beef in the back of my freezer that I didn't know I had. It like fell behind something. And so I'm cleaning out the freezer, taking inventory of all of our meat. And I found it and I was like, this is a great day. And so I cooked ground beef, burger patties in the cast iron, and all of that nice, all that nice grease was still in there, just like you would get bacon grease if you cook bacon, you know? And I'm like, I can't just throw this out. So I scooped it into a jar, just like you would keep bacon grease. And I put Wagyu burger grease on everything for the next like 3 days. I was just coating stuff with it, man. I'm like, I can't throw it out.
It's funny you say that because I actually have a mason jar in my refrigerator of bacon fat. And I will use that bacon fat to do home fries. I'll use it to make popcorn.
Yeah.
I'll fry eggs. Oh, dude, you just can't. It's good, and it adds so much flavor to whatever you're going to cook with it.
We were talking yesterday about cooking with duck fat, man. You get down with the duck fat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, duck fat is so rich and flavorful that you have to take advantage of it. You have to take advantage of it and use it. Don't throw it away. There's actually a restaurant up in Maine that's what they specialize. It's all duck, and They do like duck fat fried French fries.
That's what my buddy was cooking yesterday on the show, dude.
Okay.
What a mistake, dude, because I watched him make it and I'm like, wait, I can't eat it, dude.
That's how I was feeling about this tri-tip. I'm like, dude, you're making tri-tip? How am I going to have any?
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, that's all right. So my wife's cousin, he does a lot of fishing, and it's trout season up here right now. So I've got a couple of fresh trouts, and I'm actually going to smoke them tomorrow.
Nice. So walk me through smoking trout.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I've taken the trout and I've essentially brined them. So I take a salt and a sugar rub and I rub it on there.
Papers.
Yeah, that too, right? So I've rubbed it down. I'll leave it set overnight. And then what I'm going to do is I'll pull it out tomorrow morning, rinse all that off because I don't want that extra salt. All I want is just to cure the outside of it. Mm-hmm. And then what I'm going to do is I have apple wood chips. And just to give it a little hint of apple flavor, it shouldn't take more than 2 hours. And I'll have smoked trout. What I'm going to do with that smoked trout, I'm going to just devour it. But you can actually make a smoked trout salad, almost like think chicken salad or tuna salad. Yeah. So a smoked trout salad, just a hint of smoke on there. Yeah.
That sounds awesome, dude. Yep. So when I was growing up in Miami, I remember I just had this memory come back to me for some reason. But I remember my parents and my parents' friends all would make smoked fish dip with amberjack. And it was even, how like kids, we don't have really an advanced palate and you don't really try a lot of things. I remember being a young kid and being like, this is incredible. Just eating crackers and fish dip, just right? And so I just messaged my mom's friend the other day and I'm like, can you tell me how to make that, dude? I should be making that like every day. And she's like, it's just smoked fish, mayonnaise, and I don't remember what like horseradish or something, It's like, she's like, just mix it together. It's delicious. It's not hard.
That's awesome. So
give us another, I feel like you're in the education realm, though. I feel like we need to learn stuff from you today. So what's another tip that's maybe like something that's a secret ingredient or a method or something that people can apply at their household?
Patience. So it sounds no. So
it sounds like teacher man to come up with something philosophical. We want hard answers.
So here's the thing: is I think what happens is too often times we're in the instant gratification phase right now of our lives. Like we're in a phase where like, oh, we need it right now, and too often times people. And I won't talk just students, but people in general, what they do is they see a recipe and they're like, oh yeah, I can make this. Yeah. And then they read the first line and then they read the last line and they skip everything in between. So you have to be patient. You have to practice a little bit of patience, read through the recipe and then read it again. And obviously the world of food and cooking, it's all about trial and error. It's all about learning. If something didn't work this time, what did I do? And what can I change next time to make it work? And oftentimes what happens is we get too rushed. We're rushing through what we're trying to do because we want that instant gratification. Okay. So we got to slow down. We got to pump the brakes a little bit and let it flow. So that's my philosophical answer for the evening.
And it's like that with a lot of things, man. I can make the comparison to comedy. Everyone wants to know, how do they become successful? How do they become successful? It's like, don't think about the end goal, man. Think about getting good. Think about doing it right. You know what I mean? Take your time.
Yeah.
There's zero shortcuts. You know what I mean? And if you go out and you bomb, it wasn't a wasted set. If anything, that you probably learned from that set, and it's just going to make you better in this. So same thing with cooking. You got to just try it, see how it tastes, and make some adjustments and move forward and do it again and do it again and do it again.
So I'll tell you, I had when I was a student at Johnson & Wales, I had a chef instructor that one of our classes was knife cuts. Like, so you perfect your knife cuts. And he says to me, he goes, Steve, do you know what the difference between an A and a B on your carrots or your knife cuts or your carrots are? I said, no, chef, what is it? He goes, all of these scraps that you have that make it a B, just eat those. Now now you don't have as many scraps, so now you got an A. So
how much did that guy weigh?
yeah. Thankfully, we were only cutting a lot of vegetables in that class, so he wasn't too hefty.
Jeff Shepard, who lives in Indy and is a huge Rec Tech fan, he is asking where I got my Pliny the Elders from. And Jeff, actually, I think you'll appreciate this. Yeah, we obviously can get them easier than you can in the Midwest here in California, but they're hard to get down here in LA too, man. Stores actually limit them. It's like when they make it look like there's a long line at the nightclub and there's really not. Stores limit them down here, so only people can only buy a few at a time, whatever. So I have a friend who has a hookup, and I called him last week because my wife really likes them too, and I traded him a bunch of my beers for Pliny's so I could give them to my wife for Mother's Day. So that's how cool my wife is. She enjoys Pliny the Elders for Mother's Day, and here I am drinking one of her gifts. So I'm
see if this helps. There.
Yeah,
there
no, you're doing great, man. You look fantastic.
All right.
I'm going to keep talking, and whether normally I would let this meat rest for as long as possible. I would let it rest for 20, 30, an hour if I could. But I'm going to let it rest for at least another 5 minutes and at least cut a little bit so everyone could see it before we take off here. How long do you normally let your meat rest when you're done cooking?
So I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. The way I let my meat rest, depending on the size of it, if I'm doing something that I saw the size of your tri-tip, I'd honestly let it rest for a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Some people are like, oh, well, will it be cold? No. Think about that Thanksgiving turkey. When you pull that turkey out of the oven, it's going to be just nice and hot an hour and a half from now. So you don't have to worry about getting cold. It's not getting cold. What it's doing is distributing those juices.
100%. And I feel very strongly about this, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. And when I'm done, you feel free to jump in and give your 2 cents on what you think. Okay. So I think you were preaching about patience earlier. I think that's the number one place where people lose their cool and they pull the meat out, and they've done all this work. They've smoked a brisket for 12 hours. They got it up to 203 degrees, and their guests are getting cranky because it's like, we came here early and we want to eat food and it smells so good. And it's hard not to just dive into it and go, what good? It doesn't need to rest that long, and just slice. And then you just ruined your whole cook, man, because the juices just fly out of it, and the air hits it, and it's dry, and the muscles tighten. You got to let it rest for a minimum of 30 minutes, no matter what you cook. Because like Steve was saying, it's got to reabsorb those juices. And I have it just sitting out here in the air. If you can wrap it, that helps a little bit more. Also, if you have to wait longer, if you need to wait an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, because your guests aren't coming later, then you can wrap it and leave it, and it will stay hot, like Steve said. It will stay hot. It'll be fine. My son always says that. My son's always like, it's going to be cold. Trust me. We've had a lot of barbecue. It's never been cold once. You know what I'm saying? Now, here's the other thing that I think people do that's wrong. They get so excited about wrapping it and waiting. So they take it out of the smoker, and, they maybe only need to wait 30 minutes or an hour to dive into it. But what they decide to do is they wrap it in a towel. It's in foil, it's in a towel, and it's in a cooler. Well, now you just made an oven. So you took it out of your smoker, and now you're putting it in an oven for 2 hours, and it's cooking longer. And now you've overcooked it, right? If you don't have to wait, pull it out, maybe have foil on it, maybe have a towel over it. Let it just sit on your counter for at least 30 minutes. If you can wait an hour, that's even better. If you have to wait for longer and you're not like if you don't have access to hot boxes or heaters, then you can maybe wrap it in a towel and put it in a cooler and drive across town to your buddy's house. But pull your brisket a little early. Pull your tri-tip a little early. So then it has room to carry over a little bit. Am I wrong on any of that, Steve, or am I preaching?
You're absolutely correct. you said, it goes back to that patience. You have to have patience when it comes to cooking. Let it rest. It's not going to get cold. It's just going to redistribute those juices. You talked about the brisket. If you cut right into that brisket, you just wasted however long, 12 hours, 16 hours, however long it was that you let it cook to make yourself some shoe leather.
Yeah. So that's the number one place where people don't have patience. I think the number two place where people don't have patience is during a brisket with the stall. They hit that stall at like 190 and they're like waiting. And then they're like, when it's slowly easing up and they can see it ease up, they feel a little bit more like, oh, it's cooking. It's going to get there in no time. But the second it hits that stall, and for people watching, if you don't know this, briskets always hit some sort of a stall. So whether it's at 150 degrees, 160, 170, 180, 190, somewhere in that process, it's cooking and the internal temperature is coming up, and then it hits a stall and it stops coming up. And then it comes out of the stall and it goes up again. It's so many people, it hits that stall like 190 and then they wait and it doesn't come up and they go, I'm just going to pull it. What's the difference between 190 and 203? A big difference. You got to have patience and wait it out. It's like a midlife crisis. It's like everything's going good. And then all of a sudden, life's not good anymore. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do to get out of that midlife crisis and get back on track, buddy. You can't just say like, divorce. That was deep. Now you wanted to get philosophical on this episode, and I'm just trying to match your energy.
I appreciate that. I learned a lot from my first marriage. I'll tell you that much.
Speaking of patience, huh? What's your favorite thing? Yep. Do you have kids, Steve? Oh yeah, you said you have a daughter. 1-year-old.
1-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So they're still eating mush and whatever. What's your favorite thing for you and your wife to cook at home? What if you have a special occasion and you're like, I want to make my wife happy? What do you make at home?
So my wife is a chicken parm fanatic. She loves chicken parm. If I'm, so to say, in the doghouse, it's chicken parm for dinner.
Yeah. That's the get out of jail for free card, huh?
And when that's it. And whenever you're making chicken parm, use panko breadcrumbs. I mean, you cannot get any crispier than panko breadcrumbs.
Dude, I think panko is definitely a cheat code. I don't use it enough. And people, whenever I eat something, I'm like, this is amazing. What'd you do there? And they're like, panko. Dude, my buddy made this mac and cheese when we were on a boys golf trip. And I'm like, dude, this is the best mac and cheese I've ever in my life. He's like, panko breadcrumbs all on top.
Yeah, that or Ritz cracker crumbs on top of mac and cheese.
Now you're talking. I'm going to give you a family secret. Are you ready? My mom, when I was growing up, made the best conch fritters, right? Everybody had their own conch fritter recipe, and conch fritters are one of those things where everyone makes them different. My mom's conch fritters were the jam, still are to this day. Her secret ingredient, Bisquick.
Really?
Yeah. Bisquick.
All right.
Veggies, big chunks of conch, and then fry it just right. The best. All right. Even though we're not waiting 30 minutes, we're going to go against our own advice, and I'm going to start slicing so I can get your approval on this. So go ahead. What are you going to say?
So I'll tell you that you were talking conch fritters. Something we have here in Rhode Island, and I got introduced to specifically by my wife and her family, were stuffies.
Stuffies?
So what stuffies are, yeah. So you want to talk, it's a clam that's like oversized. It's huge. I kid when I say it's this big around, often referred to as a quahog. Now, if you're a Family Guy fan, you've heard that term before. But quahogs, big clams, and what they do is they take and they shuck them, basically pull the clam out, and then they mix it with like breadcrumbs and pepper, like red pepper, green pepper, celery, onions, and then some breadcrumb. or Ritz cracker crumbs, because that's kind of like the secret ingredient. You mix all that together like a stuffing. You put it back in the big clamshell.
Oof.
And then you bake it. You get that hard crust on the outside, and it's called a steak.
That sounds killer, dude.
I love it.
Think that gets the job done, man. Definitely not undercooked, I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you the one thing that's really tricky about tri-tip is, granted, I've cooked a lot more briskets than tri-tip, but I would consider myself pretty damn good at slicing a brisket, but tri-tip is really difficult to find the grain. You know, you always want to slice meat against the grain, and brisket goes like this, and there's one like shift, and then you turn and you go this way. Tri-tip goes like, this is the grain in tri-tip, you know? Tri-tip's like, it's the grain. It's the thinking man's meat.
Because obviously if you don't cross the grain, it's going to be, you know, just long strands. If you're cutting with the grain, it's going to be long strands. If you cut across the grain, you're going to get these nice little sections, so it's pull apart tender. Uh-oh.
Oh, we both lost there. You back?
I'm back. I'm here. You there?
Yeah, man. Sorry, the internet went out. The Thunderbirds just flew over in formation. So USA,
I saw you said
USA.
I saw you said earlier that it wasn't like they were supposed to be there, but then they weren't, and they had to reschedule or something like that.
Dude,
so
yeah, we live like a mile from the beach. They were supposed to fly down the coastline, so we got on our bikes. We hurried up down Grand Avenue to get to the beach. We get there, we're waiting. Apparently they diverted and they ended up flying over our house and going that way instead. And so we missed them completely. I'm like, oh man, come on. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. This came out really good, bro.
Looks good, man. Looks good.
Here you go, Steve. Open your mouth.
Ah.
Wait, let's time it up there.
I love it.
Let's do it again. Open up. Ready? Ah. This is good stuff, man.
Good, man.
I give you all the credit, man. I appreciate you. Steve, it was a pleasure talking to you, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
You as well.
In case people don't know, man, my buddy was supposed to be on with me today, and he bailed, and I threw it up on Instagram, and you were like, hey, man, I'd love to come on with you. And I'm really glad you did, man. Thanks so much for coming through. And whenever touring is allowed to start happening again, and I come back to the Northeast, man, would love to hang out. Would love to have you out to a show.
Awesome. Hey, can I do, I want to say one thing.
Whatever you want.
Whomever is watching this. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, when this quarantine is over, and even if you can right now, go support your little mom and pop restaurants. Unfortunately, so many of them may not make it through this, but we need to support them. We need mom and pop restaurants in our world and in our country. Those are the people that make, as Dave, as you said, the grandmother down in Miami. These are the people that need us right now more than ever. So if you can get out and support a local restaurant, take full advantage of it. Get out there and eat some local food and support the small businesses. So,
amen, man. Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of the places here in my part of town have been, you know, hanging in there and hanging on, and everyone's been really doing a great job supporting them. But they just announced the biggest restaurant here. It's called Rock and Brews, and the main investor is Gene Simmons from Kiss. They have quite a few locations around the country now, and you know, I'm sure their overhead, because it's the biggest square footage place here in my area. They just announced that they're going to close and not reopen, and it's such a shame, man. It's such a shame, because there's going to be a long time before a restaurant can move into a space that big and sustain. And a lot of people are writing on
Most
Facebook
definitely.
and they're being all snippy, like, oh no, we don't have to pay $35 for mozzarella sticks anymore. And it's like, you know what? You're going to know what you had once it's gone. And when that place sits empty for a year, you're going to be upset that it's not there anymore. And it really is sad, man. I hope the restaurant industry, more than any other industry, man, this is a very turbulent time.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. Next time you come to Rhode Island, I'll make sure we hook you up with a stuffy. All right.
Absolutely, brother. I can't wait to find out what that is and if you're telling the truth.
I am. All right. All right. Take care.
Be good, man. You guys follow Steve on Instagram at Steve from JWU. Support him. If you know anybody that is interested in going to the culinary arts and they're in high school right now, and who knows, I'm sure a lot of high school kids, their future is up in the air right now. Feel free to send them his way, and I'm sure he can steer them in the right direction and let them know a good way to get into that field. If you guys enjoyed this broadcast or you got anything out of it, it would be awesome if you supported me and JR. Just drop us a few bucks at Dave W Comedy. Thank you so much for the people that have been doing that this week. I'm not doing this to try to make a ton of money or anything. I just want to be able to drop JR a few bucks to make it worth his while to come down here and actually put lights up and a microphone and make it sound good for me. So I appreciate you guys if you could support the live stream. We're trying to do this every day, Monday through Friday, and I'm going to try to start cooking more often too. It was a lot of fun doing tri-tip with you guys today. Thank you for everyone who asked questions. Daniel, Bora, Mitch, Jeff, I appreciate y'all being here. And then I'm going to go over and check my Instagram live feed once I shut it down, and I'll answer whatever questions you guys put on there. Keep it 3 beers deep, everybody. That's the comfort zone. That's where I think you should keep it, right? If you have beers when you're drinking all day long, boop, 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 wait for that first beer to wear off before you start the 4th beer. No one likes a sloshy dad, okay? Guys, we have an idea. I don't know if I should announce it because we just came up with it 5 minutes ago, but I'm considering on my birthday, May 31st, doing like a 9-hour live stream from my front yard where I just cook food all day long and hang out and bring in guests all day long. And we ain't got nothing else going on. So message me. Let me know if you think that sounds like fun. You don't have to watch the whole 9 hours, but you could just pop in and out all day long. JR, I really want to pull that off, man. I think it could be a lot of fun. So appreciate you guys being here. Let me show you one more time. Here's my tri-tip. We're going to go inside and bring it to my family so we can eat dinner tonight. Hope you guys are eating well tonight. Tri-tip on the Meet Dave broadcast. See you guys on Monday, 6 o'clock sharp, California time. Have a great night. I'm an idiot.